grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had a great childhood. So my mom is loads of fun. I have a sister, and I have a father who's a truck driver. And so I can't say we were rich. We weren't a wealthy family, but we just had a load of fun and loved each other.
Nice. Did you find that you were interested in space as a kid early on, or did this all come later?
One of my favorite pictures is a trip to Houston where we actually got to tour the Space Center. And in that picture, I'm trying on a helmet, and my sister's also trying on a space helmet. And in that picture, I'm just staring right at the camera like, you just wait. I'm going to wear this. And then, you know, my sister's like, how do you put this thing on? And but I'm like, I just have this fierce look in my eyes. It's like a 4-year-old where I just look like, yeah, I'm probably going to wear that one day. I'm going to grow right into it. So, yeah, I think there's always been, obsession with space. I grew up during the beginning of the space shuttle era. Unfortunately, I missed Saturn V. I wasn't old enough to ever get to see that, beautiful, 7.5 million pounds of thrust engine lift off of Earth. But I did grow up during the shuttle era and the movie Space Camp and absolutely interested in space, wanted to be an astronaut.
Did you get a chance to go to space camp when you were a kid?
I did not. Okay. As I mentioned, we weren't a wealthy family, and that was never really in the cards. And, I look at programs today. I look at what, like, Danny Yakas is doing to raise money and provide scholarships for kids that really want to go. And, boy, am I envious. So I would have loved to have gone to space camp as a kid. I watched that movie obsessively. Yeah. And so it was the biggest deal in the universe when they came and recruited, looking for folks to come work at space camp. You better believe I was first in line for that interview.
How old were you when that happened?
I was in college. Okay. So I was at Western Kentucky University, and the ambassadors came and they did interviews at Western Kentucky, and I stood in line and, put in my application and got an interview on the spot. I think there were 200 applicants at Western, and one got picked.
And it was you?
It was the luckiest, best day of my life that happened. You just would not believe. And I think I knew that it was going to be this giant pivot point for me and a real opportunity.
What were you currently in school for? What was your major at that time? Yeah,
so I had a triple major, physics, mathematics, and secondary education.
Okay. So you went to, would this have been a summer job?
Yes. Okay. So this is 30 years ago, 1996. And when I got that offer letter, I can't remember, it was probably like $6.25 an hour. Still today, the best job I've ever had.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I have so many fond memories. The experiences were invaluable. It literally changed the trajectory of my life.
Tell me what it was about it that did that.
So I knew it was going to be a pivot point, but I don't think I understood how big of a pivot point for my life. I knew I was going to love learning to be an astronaut here. I knew that I was going to love working with the kids. Right. As I mentioned, I was going for a secondary education degree and planned on teaching high school. So my counselor position was placed with high school kids. And so I knew I was going to love that part of it.
Yeah.
Easy. Like, I knew that was going to be awesome. What I don't think I understood was that I was going to meet some of the best friends of my life. The space camp counselors that I worked alongside every day that were also very like-minded. These were people that were in science majors with education intentions. And so they were very like-minded people, science and education.
Yeah.
And so I ended up meeting some of the best friends of my life here. Not only did I think we just enjoyed this job so much together, but also watching our career trajectories after the fact was really just something special to keep in touch with each other and help each other. That thread runs tight. If any of us call each other, we have each other.
Yeah. So how many years did you do that for? Was it just the one summer, or did you come back?
So I did one summer, and then I also came back for Christmas camp twice.
Okay. So when you returned from the end of the summer, and this had altered a lot of your perspectives and ideas about where to go, what decisions did you do to change things when you went back to school?
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily an immediate change because I was already on this trajectory to teach high school.
Yeah.
So,
And it was already STEM.
yes. So I went back and did my student teaching. So I hadn't done that yet.
Okay.
And so I did that at Western Kentucky at Bowling Green High School. And then once I finished my student teaching, then obviously it was time to, I moved back home to Louisville, Kentucky, and I got a job teaching physics and math at Eastern High School in Louisville. And I incorporated, so I'd say one of the first things that happened is I incorporated what I learned from Space Camp into my physics classes. So I would teach a small unit on rocketry, and I did something really fun. So I did some space history, taught some rocketry lessons, and then I bought, with my $13,000 a year salary, I bought a bunch of rocket kits. I had an electric launch pad, of course, and so I bought a bunch of different types of rocket models, and then I just took out all the instructions. I dumped them all on a big table. And I said, you had a lesson in rocketry. Build some rockets. And they said, but how? And he's like, you figure it out. This is a project, right? And I don't care what happens with this rocket. I mean, we're going to launch them.
Right.
And it can fail. It can succeed. It can be the highest. There's no competition here. What I do want you to do is experiment. Don't just go with what you necessarily have heard or have been taught is the correct way to do this. Right? If you have a different idea for how to put the fins on or, how many stages to use or whatever, that's really up to you. And the kids would experiment and some would fail, some would succeed. But that's what it was all about. They got this lesson in rocketry. I would have never done that had I not did rocketry lessons here at Space Camp.
That's awesome.
So that was the first thing that changed, right? But then I have all these friends that are working in the, space and missile defense now, back here in Huntsville. A lot of them stayed. And they're like, you could come down here and work for our companies. And I was like, are you sure they would want, a high school teacher?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, for sure. You got a physics and math degree. Come on down, back to Huntsville. And so I did.
Wow.
I mean, it changed my trajectory. I don't think I would have ever considered really working in space and missile defense had my buddies, my fellow space camp counselors, not said, this is what we're doing. Come on down. You can do it too.
But I love that you were a high school teacher and then moved into space and missile defense. That's that's not a path that you would necessarily anticipate at all. Like, that's incredible.
I definitely did not anticipate that. I've always wanted to be an astronaut, as I mentioned, and I did apply twice. I used to hang the rejection letters on my fridge, and that was, in my 20s. Both of those rejections were in my 20s.
Sure.
By the way, still available, NASA. I would still go.
So you when you came to Huntsville, then where did you land? Where did you land in Huntsville?
So I landed in Huntsville in August of 1998 at Zontech. So Zontech was a small radar house, and trained to be a radar analyst. So I learned most of what I knew about radar from doing software development and software analysis with Zontech. So we had a sensor simulation test bed where we would model all sorts of different radars from National Missile Defense, and that ages me right there, NMD. And so we modeled all sorts of different radars, and when Zontech was bought by Northrop, at the time I was living in D.C., and that's when Kwajalein came knocking. So in 2003, Northrop Grumman bought out Zontech. I had to make a decision if I was going to join this way bigger company. Zontech was only a 250-person company. Yeah. So I had to decide, am I going to stay and do new work for a bigger company? Nothing wrong with Northrop, but just, it was a decision point. And I got a call from some folks at Kwajalein that they were looking for radar systems engineers out there. And I thought, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds wacky. And I'm into living a life full of adventure and joy.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's go.
Were they also just a radar company, or did they do other things and just had like an area that was radar?
So Kwajalein is a little tiny island. It's 2.5 mile by half mile. It's in the Republic of the Marshall Islands on the Kwajalein Atoll.
Okay.
This is an island that is, if you spin the globe you go straight north of New Zealand, about 8 degrees north of the equator. So it's in between Hawaii and Guam. So hopefully that gives you just a couple of globe references for where this is. So it's very small. Again, 2.5 mile by half mile.
Okay.
So you're surrounded by water. There's no cars, only bicycles, no cell phones. So it's kind of like living in 1950s Mayberry.
Yeah.
And
what was the trip to the mainland? How long?
Well, you had to hop. There's an island hopper.
Okay.
United is the only plane that flies out there, and it hops from Honolulu to Majuro to Kwajalein to Coast Rai to Ponape to Chuuk to Guam.
Wow.
So it just goes up, down, all over the Pacific Ocean. And so in order to fly from Honolulu to Kwajalein, you had to hop down on Majuro first. So the total trip, the time, was about 8 hours.
Okay.
And then if you want to fly back to Louisville, Kentucky, that's another, few hops through a hub. And by that time, it's, another 15 hours you had to that. So
wow.
Not easy to get back home.
And you just went for it.
Just went for it.
Wow.
It was a great adventure. I lived out there 15 years. So
wow,
obviously
it must have
I
been
loved
okay,
it
yeah.
for a long time. And I had an amazing career out there. So I went out to be the systems engineer for Altair, which is a big 150-foot dish UHF VHF radar. The radar exists on Roy Namur, which is another island in the Kwajalein Atoll. So I would fly up, either on like a Dash 7 or a Metroliner or even a chopper sometimes, fly up, almost every day to work on that radar.
Wow.
For a lot of years I did that.
So, I'm guessing, I bet it was beautiful there. It sounds like it was.
Absolutely stunning. Water the color of Windex. It was, very healthy reef. So learned to scuba dive while I was out there, got my advanced scuba diving certificate. We could dive some pretty great shipwrecks out there. Kwajalein was a World War II battle site.
Okay.
So there were definitely, some pretty amazing shipwrecks to go investigate.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, scuba diving out there was great because it's such a healthy reef. So it's very sharky.
Yeah.
But they're friendly sharks. They're really, really actually just the sweetest sharks. And they're just very curious.
Yeah.
So we didn't, very often we didn't see tiger sharks or, we didn't have great whites. The water's a little too warm for that. I know people that did see tiger sharks. I never saw one while I was out there. If you did, everybody understood that you got right out the water. I mean, it didn't say. You got to the boat as quick as possible and got out. But often we'd, anchor and drop in on things like Troy's Coral Head, where there'd be 50 to 70 sharks.
Wow.
And you'd drop right in and swim right alongside them. So the gray reefs were very common there, and that was the only one you really had to worry about. And you really only had to worry about those is if they postured. So they do this thing where they kind of hump their back up and down, and if that happened, you'd
go away.
Yeah, you'd back away. Other than that, we had white tips and black tips, and mostly they were just curious and friendly, and you'd see them everywhere, whether you were snorkeling, diving. Yeah, very healthy reef.
So it's not a very large island, but it sounds like is there a full a city or a town there? Like you said, there's no cars, but what's the population like, or is it just the base?
So we'd have about 1,000 people on the island on any given day around there. I taught dance for pretty much all 15 years I was out there. So I was engineer by day and a dance teacher by night. So if you didn't know me as a radar engineer, you knew me as Miss Julie, the dance teacher.
That's amazing.
So I had about 100 kids every year, pretty much the majority of the girls, that I had. And then I also had boys in the classes as well. And then my own son also took dance lessons with me for a little while. And I just remember he was the only boy. And I just remember at the end of one year, he said, he looked all of a sudden at the recital. He's on stage and he goes, "Wait, am I the only boy?" I'm like, "Oh, yes, you are." And he was so shocked by that,
I love it's such a wonderful thing about kids. Like it doesn't matter until it does.
Right.
And then it's like, oh.
It's a really sweet moment.
Yeah.
Very cute. So, yeah, I taught dance. So that, to me, was just this incredible opportunity. I had danced my entire life, ballet, tap, jazz, growing up. And then I danced in high school, danced in college. In college, we were 6th in the nation, both my junior and senior year.
Wow.
So if you've ever watched the dance competitions on ESPN, we made it. We were on there. So just the fact that I got to continue dancing, I think, as an adult, because I always participated in the routines every year.
Right. I would have never expected that in such a remote spot for that opportunity to also be there.
Well, at the end of the day, I think when you live in a remote spot like that, you make it whatever you want it to be.
Sure.
Right? So when I got there, nobody was teaching dance. And I was like, wow, what an opportunity. I love to work with kids, right? So we know I've got education, great intentions with education. I've had my entire career in life. So I love working with kids. And I was like, and there's nobody teaching dance, and I want to dance. And so not only did I teach kids, but I also had an adult hip hop and tap class.
Nice.
And we were like the coolest adults on the island, I'm just going to say. Yeah.
Let's focus a little bit back on the radar. So you would fly out to work on the radar. You said like almost every day. Like what when you say work on the radar, what would that entail? Like, was it software? Was it, were you out there with a wrench, or a little of both?
Fortunately, I was not out there with a wrench.
Okay.
We did climb on the radar, so we had to take what was called Climber 2 safety training.
Okay.
So that we could prove that we were comfortable and understood the safety requirements for climbing and staying harnessed in.
Sure.
This is a big 150-foot dish radar that travels around on wheels and rails like a train track.
Wow.
So sometimes we'd climb up on the radar, but mostly, as a systems engineer, I was doing analysis. I was preparing for the missions. Okay. And I operated also as a flight test director for the radar. So when we had the incoming missiles, like from the Glory trips that launch out of Vandenberg, those land right in our lagoon. So if you weren't working the mission, you could go out and watch the missile land in the lagoon. You could actually visually just watch it.
Wow.
So a lot of people would obviously go out, and it was the island entertainment.
Yeah.
And since I was working the mission, I actually didn't get to do that very often. I was sitting on the radar console.
Right.
And for almost every mission that was incoming or outgoing, so we launched also from Mech and Amalek, any mission that was incoming or outgoing, I was flight test director for many, many years. And I was the second female flight test director out there.
Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. So you were there 15 years.
Yes.
Well, that's long enough to settle, really. Like,
it really is.
So at that point, what drove you to leave, and where did you go?
Yeah, that's the majority of my adult life.
Yeah.
Was spent on this tiny island. And not only did I teach dance, and not only was I a flight test director and radar engineer, but I also was in a rock band out there. So again, you kind of make your experience there.
Yeah.
So there's just opportunity after opportunity. If it doesn't exist, do it, right? And so very, very fortunate to do that. Our band was called Stonefish, and I was the lead singer, played a little bit of guitar and harmonica.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I did that also for 15 years. So just really filled the time out.
Can we find you on iTunes?
No. So here's the kicker. This was a place where there were no cell towers. Nobody had cell phones.
Right.
So we weren't just, recording everything. Don't have loads and loads of pictures unless you actually owned one of those like point and shoot cameras.
Sure, yeah.
It was a very different life experience out there.
And some of that's not just the remoteness, but also just the time. Right, because cell phones really weren't we weren't everywhere with cell phones till early 2000s, so
my kid started school out there. He went to kindergarten. He had a fantastic kindergarten experience with great friends and a wonderful teacher. But at that point, I started realizing it was probably time to move back to the mainland.
Yeah.
And so
he was going to have to learn to drive one day.
Right. I wanted him to grow up, in the United States.
Sure.
He did get that island boy experience up until the age of 6.
Right.
And he got to ride a bike at age 3, which everybody does, by the way. That's not special out there. Every kid learns around age 3 to, with no training wheels. They take off and they get very independent. So for kindergarten, I would stand at the door, like still in my pajama pants and drinking coffee. and send him off on his bike to kindergarten. I'm like, have a good day. And just waving at him. And he's riding off on his own. So it was kind of an incredible way to grow up and experience that level of independence early, where I feel like here, as soon as we moved here, he was under full lock and key and control.
Yeah.
It really changed things. But that was one of the main reasons we left, really, was to bring Wiley back and have him experience life in the United States and go to school here.
Yeah. Now, technically, was that island part of the U.S.?
It's not. It's
Okay.
so Kwajalein Island is a U.S. Army base.
Okay.
So, yes, we were living on a U.S. Army base.
Okay.
However, the country is Republic of the Marshall Islands.
Okay.
And it is occupied by Marshallese people.
Okay. Not a good question. I was just curious if he was like, does that make him born a U.S. citizen if he was born on the base, or is he dual citizenship? Because I was curious about that.
Great question. And there was an era where you could give birth on Kwajalein and your baby would have dual citizenship. However, when I was pregnant, I had to fly home to Louisville, Kentucky at 36 weeks pregnant.
Oh, goodness.
And the entire flight across the Pacific Ocean, I was like, I'm so having my baby over the Pacific Ocean. This is so happening.
was this to ensure proper citizenship?
No, the medical facilities out there were no longer equipped to really handle. My prenatal care was with what I call a hesitant podiatrist. He's wonderful. And actually, I think it was the best prenatal care I could have gotten because he was so excited.
Yeah.
He hadn't done this wasn't his daily routine as a doctor.
Sure.
So when I came in and said, "Hey, I'm pregnant," he said, "Oh, this is gonna be fun," So, and it was, when we listened to the heartbeat out there, and I went through ultrasounds and things.
You were a celebrity.
He was as excited as I was.
Yeah.
So I think there was some, pros and cons out there to the medical situation, but they no longer allowed you to give birth on Kwajalein. So 36 weeks. I was flying across the Pacific Ocean thinking, I'm probably giving birth on a plane. I'm going to be one of those stories on the news. But I made it. I did it. And in fact, Wiley waited until I was 41 weeks. So
goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So eventually you decided to move back to the mainland U.S. at some point. So how did that come about? Obviously, you decided that you wanted a change in environment for raising your kids. When you came back, did you find a new job? Did you wait for a job offer? How did you initiate the move?
So when you're in this industry, when you're working in space and missile defense, there's several usual suspects. Right? There's a couple of places that are just obvious landing spots for this kind of work. And so we originally looked at Colorado Springs, and we're very, very close to moving there and taking some work there. So when I moved to Huntsville, Alabama, I ended up flipping to the government. So I had worked as a contractor on Kwajalein. I was working for KRS, Kwajalein Range Services, and that was a joint venture with Lockheed and Bechtel. And prior to that, we talked about how I worked for Zontech. So those were the two companies I'd worked for in my adult career after teaching high school. And when I flipped to the government, I was working at the Operational Test Agency. So this is under the Army Test and Evaluation Command with oversight of Missile Defense Agency. So it's very complicated.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of acronyms that go into that. But so I came in as the lead radar evaluator, which made all the sense.
Right.
And, when you're a worker in the government, you tend to get more work. So I think, from that contractor background, I was used to just going all in and working very, very hard.
Yeah.
So I pretty quickly got dual-hatted, took on the position as the M&S, that's modeling and simulation, accreditation lead. And so that had oversight of 65 plus models at MDA. And so that I enjoyed quite a bit from my software development and analysis experience and background. So I was very comfortable in that role. And then
when you say 65 models, do you mean like models of missiles, like the way we talk about models of cars, just like 65 different types of missiles.
You can model just about anything. You can model the actual, interceptors. You can model radars. You can model optics. You can model the communication systems and the network piece, right? So there's all sorts of things you can model. You can also model the environments. So when I was on Kwajalein, one of the things we did with my UHF VHF radar, and it's one of really my highlights out there on Kwajalein, is we were studying the ionosphere. So NASA, along with Cornell, came out and did a study where we would scan the night sky every night for about 3 months. We did this. So I actually lived up on Roy Moore during this time period for about 3 months. And we would use our UHF radar to scan the ionosphere. So basically, we're scanning the F-spread region of the ionosphere. At the end of the day, we're kind of measuring the total electron content and watching to see on which nights the ionosphere was excited. And on those nights, we had 2 sounding rockets. And so 2 nights out of those 3 months, we said, this is it. The electrons are happy. The ionosphere is excited. And we're going to launch the sounding rocket. And we launched those rockets. I don't know how far away it was from the building. It feels like it was right next to us, and we took turns actually running out to watch it from the consoles. And it was the most thrilling experience you can fathom to have those sounding rockets launch right next to our building.
How big were they?
I don't know how big the sounding rockets were, but they would launch and then they'd inject some dye. Don't ask me what the dye was because I don't know.
Sure.
But it was a big red, they injected this just red dye into the ionosphere. And then we would scan with our radar and collect more information. And it's that kind of effort, that kind of study and data collection that goes into building these truth models that now, when I was at the government, I was responsible for evaluating and making sure they were accurate. And so, all of my experience with working on the UHF radar then and collecting ionospheric data helped create the models that we needed to run so that we had an accurate representation of a ground test, so that we weren't just running all blue sky situations.
Right.
Now we were modeling when that ionosphere gets excited and it produces a scintillation impact to the UHF radar, we could actually run the ground test that way so that we were running a very truthful test. And then I ended up getting triple hatted while I was at the government. So then I also took on our cybersecurity evaluations. And when I was on Kwajalein, that was another thing I did, is I helped run as a PM. I ran the DIACAP. Don't ask me what DIACAP stands for. That's too many letters. But in there is IA, Information Assurance, which is what we used to call cybersecurity, basically.
Right.
And so it was making sure that all of our systems, especially on Kwajalein, that is so many of those systems are relatively antiquated. Mm-hmm. And so it was making sure that we were cyber secure. And so when I was at the OTA, they said, wait a minute, you have cyber on your resume. So then I got triple hatted with our cybersecurity. That was a lot of fun as well, actually. It ended up being really, really interesting. And we'd moved on from DIACAP to what's known as RMF now. And I was able to do the CVPAs and AAs out at a lot of the radars, which put me back at home with the radars. I mean, I've lived so much of my life in the back rack room at the radar, so I was very, very comfortable in that role.
Wow. Did you ever find when you were in those kinds of, like, the back rack rooms, like you say, like, did you ever find that you missed being at the front of a classroom, having a bunch of folks like looking to you for those kinds of answers and things and direction?
I've always found my way back to kids, right? So, even if on Kwajalein, where I was working as an engineer and a flight test director in the day, I had the kids at night doing dance, right? And it was so fun. And, I think, moving here to Huntsville, I found pretty quickly, the Space Club. And the Space Club is an education mission. And so this is the National Space Club Huntsville. And immediately started volunteering. And so they volunteer at STEM nights, like at the elementary schools. Mm-hmm. And we would demo things like the Van de Graaff generator, Gaussian linear accelerator, magnets, Sometimes we'd make balloon rockets, for the kids.
Yeah.
And trying to think of what else we've done. Oh, we have things like Newton's cradle, right, where we talk about Newton's third law. And so I've always sort of found my way back to these situations, right, where I get the interaction and the joy of working with kids and watching and encouraging that that spirit of curiosity and inquisition, right? So watching them get curious and get excited and just making the kids feel smart. And by the way, quite often they are smarter than me. They'll ask questions and, about, well, what happens if I do this with the Newton's cradle? And I go, my gosh, I've never done that before. I never asked that question.
Well, let's find
out, right? So it is, it's really fun to work with kids. You just never know, when they're going to catch you off your feet, and ask you a question that's way smarter than you are. It's fun to see. It's fun to be a part of.
So here in Huntsville, when you were at how long did you work with the OTA?
3 years.
Okay.
And then after that, worked for a small business, and then found my place at Leidos. So about 1.5 years ago, started with Leidos. So I'm on Team Purple, and I came in. Oh, this is actually kind of fun because I originally applied for the space growth lead role, and they said, wait a minute, we see you have cyber in your resume. So the next, this is the third cyber domino that fell. And so they said, would you consider taking the threat and cyber role? And I said, absolutely, I'll do it. So I went in and worked with the threat and cyber team over the last year. So basically all of 2025, that's what I was working with. Mm-hmm. What a smart team. Holy cow. Such a smart, fun team. And I love that they're trying to change the game. So I've spent the majority of my life sitting next to soldiers out at an Army base.
Right.
And I truly have them at the heart of everything that I've ever done in this industry and in this role. Mm-hmm. So it's hard not to, if you're sitting next to soldiers for most of your life, it's hard not to think of them with every decision you make.
Yeah.
And so in the government position, as I'm making red-green fielding decisions, they're at the heart of those decisions. I want to do good things for my warfighters, and I want to do good game-changing things for my country. And so I do feel like in this role at Leidos, I've had that opportunity. So I've been working, with the threat and cyber team. This cyber team is so innovative, and they're trying to change the game, right? They're trying to make sure that our systems are cyber secure. So love that team. We did a huge reorg for 2026, and so my role changed. So I no longer have that amazing cyber team. Now I've got two more exciting teams, and I always say 2 jobs is better than 0.
Sure.
So I'm in 2 roles right now. So one role is threat sensors, and I actually worked with that team a lot last year. Okay. Very, very exciting in 2026 that I was also offered to work with the space platforms team.
Okay.
So this is what I really, really wanted to do, is work with the space team. And so I get to work with some of the smartest, coolest people on this planet that are working on things like propulsion. And there's all sorts of systems that require propulsion.
Yeah.
And with everything going on with Jared Isaacman's, Ignition Day and announcement of all the exciting, intentions for a lunar base,
right,
you better believe our team was, absolutely going bonkers, putting our heads together, thinking, again, how do we change the game for our country?
Right.
How do we change the game and insert ourselves into innovative, creative, just absolute thrilling ideas for this moon base effort?
Yeah.
We're in it. And, our propulsion team, we have a docking team and life support team. We do a lot of execution, scaling. We have incredible facilities. So we have a lot of really great things at Leidos that enable us to change the game. So we just flew our laser air monitoring solution on the Orion capsule for Artemis 2. So that was exciting, and our team's so proud, right? It's pretty, I don't know, for me personally, I would say that it's just, there's a lot of pride that goes into supporting NASA.
Yeah.
And these 4 beautiful astronauts that just went around the moon. I mean, we supported that. We had something on board.
That's pretty
So
amazing.
it blows my mind. And then I get to come home and tell my kid that I was a part of that. Yeah, there's a lot of pride with that.
Yeah. What is Leidos? Like, are they kind of like a Boeing where they just do a little bit of everything that is kind of in this ballpark? Like what?
I mean, I would say first, we'd like to apologize if we've ever held up your flight for, or you getting on a flight because you go through the airport scanner, right? If you look, the next time you get on a flight and you are getting ready to walk through the airport scanner, you're going to look up and you're going to be like, oh, Leidos. Yeah. So we do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And so we're kind of known mostly as an IT company. However, I work in the defense sector.
Right.
And under the defense sector, we have radars, we have threat sensors, we've got space platforms, we've got, wide field of view supporting the Space Development Agency.
Sure.
We support every single service.
Yeah.
So lots of work for Space Force, lots of work for Army. So we do literally a little bit of everything. We also have health systems. So, I mean, it's almost hard to quantify everything that we do, but I think at the end of the day, where do you need technology advancement and improvement? We're there.
Right. That's awesome. So outside of Leidos, you're very involved with the National Space Club, and that's kind of working with like educational things. But you're also part of the Space Force Association.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
So Damon Feltman, who is also a Space Camp Hall of Fame.
We've had him on the podcast.
All right, he's great. So he's also very convincing, which, he came to me and said, we want to get our Space Force Association chapter, our local chapter here in Rocket City. We want to get this up and running. He said, will you do this with me? Will you help me get this chapter up and running? and again, he's very convincing because at first I was like, I don't know if I have time. And he was like, and I was like, okay. So he talked me into getting this Space Force Association up and running. And it has been so rewarding to be a part of this. And the team that he pulled together were just this team of rock stars, right? Everybody's a worker, everybody's a go-getter. And this team got together and we started with like 4 of us, literally in a bar with a napkin, for real.
Right.
And so we sat down, tried to define what we think this looks like. I helped outline how would we incorporate sponsorships, so that we could build a budget to actually host events and do functional things for this community. And now, let's see, that was, I want to say 2024 March, or was it 2025 March? I'd have to go back and check that.
Let's see if it says here. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say here.
Yeah, so let me think. Last year was fully functional. Yeah, so in 2024. Okay. So in 2024 of March, that was when we got together, defined this. And now we have over 200 members. We've had several great VIP events where we had General Saltzman come in. In fact, the Rocket Center hosted that event for us. And Brigadier General Nick Hague, the astronaut, actually came in and spoke and did a fireside chat panel with Damon Feltman. And that was really incredible for our Space Force community. Yeah. And, this year now we're looking to host General Whiting and his top military leaders and bring them in so that we have the chance for the community to get to know this amazing military leadership. And we're looking at, several other events. We also get together every month, and it's been really great. We've brought in amazing speakers. This month we're about to have Joseph Pelfrey speak, the amazing Mr. Pelfrey. And so we've just had incredible speakers, and it's helped bring together the community that wants to support Space Force and our guardians. And that was something that was missing as we didn't have a giant Space Force. We didn't have a giant Space Force presence right off the bat here in Huntsville that tend to exist more in Colorado Springs, right?
Yeah.
Now that's changing, and this has been so necessary, and especially, too, as we've got Space Command coming in, it's been really necessary to have that support structure built in for their transition. So we are working, I think, especially in 2026, to be the ones with the warm welcome and the open arms and to gather up that community so that our guardians and Space Commands coming in have that support structure.
That's wonderful. And you have kind of a big deal happening with the Space Camp Hall of Fame coming up.
I'm blown away. My best friend, Amy, she's Dr. Amy Weinbarger. She works at NASA as a solar physicist. She's phenomenal. And she nominated me for this. And I was like, she sees what I do around the community with the STEM nights and just in general, trying to bring our community together. And she nominated me for this. And I said, wow, thank you. I did not ever dream that I would be invited to be inducted. I really thought that this was for people like astronauts and people like Damon Feltman, retired brigadier generals. And so it was astonishing and shocking to me. Yeah. Now, when they called me to invite me to be inducted, I thought they were calling me for an interview. And so I showed up in my flight suit. It was a Zoom meeting, and I showed up in my flight suit from 30 years ago. There's a lot of sentimental value with that flight suit. There's no way I could have ever gotten rid of that suit.
This was your Space Camp flight suit, right?
Yeah. And so I'm going to call it a life win, then I could zip it. And so, so I did. I zipped it, and I showed up on the Zoom, and I got up and modeled for everyone. And I said, I heard you're supposed to dress for the job you want. And so it was just so joyful. When they invited me, it was already joyful because I had the outfit on.
Sure.
And so it was such a great moment. And I think when they said we're actually calling to invite you to be inducted, I think I said 4 times. I think I said oh, and then I covered my mouth and said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell my son. My son is 14.
Yeah.
He's old enough to appreciate the magnitude of what this is for me. And it's just such a big orbital trajectory.
Right.
That 30 years, this is a 30-year orbit, right? That, it's like a full circle moment where I'm kind of coming back to space camp. And this place has always meant so much to me. Again, it changed my life. Yeah. And I think 30 years ago, I understood that it was going to be a pivot point. And I understand again, and maybe in a different way this time. I mentioned that 30 years ago, I understood I would love to teach people to be astronauts. I would love working with the kids. I would love having all these experiences myself even. Yeah. But I didn't quite understand the relationship piece that was going to happen. Now I think, just looking forward to this pivot again, right? Where there's so many of the Hall of Famers have reached out to me to say, welcome to the family already. And it's really special. And I recognize this exactly for what it is. It's another pivot. It's another special trajectory changing moment in my life where I will have this spectacular new family that I'll be a part of. And it's really validating, I think, for anybody's career to be, I think, recognized in such a fashion. Yeah. So it's pretty spectacular, pretty shocking, and just absolutely exciting. And the best part is that Space Camp and the Rocket Center have just been so welcoming to the idea that my kid will get to join me for all of this and be part of the celebration. And it's very, very special to me.
Does he have interest in space?
Not the same way I did. He's had astronaut outfits.
Sure. We all have, right?
Yeah. And in fact, I went to his daycare at one point and taught them all how to be, I went through all of the different, Mercury program, Gemini, right. Apollo, and the space shuttle, right? And so I went through to his daycare and I taught them, what it would be like to ride in the Mercury capsule. And then we went through Gemini I gave him a rope and let him, do tethered spacewalks. Yeah. He had a pretty fun daycare experience. And of course he had the astronaut outfit that day. And so while I think he's interested, probably more from the engineering side. So if he wants to, build a rocket to send me up, I mean, I'm in. But yeah, I mean, I think that he doesn't really want to be an astronaut anymore, but he does want to be an engineer. He's a math team kid.
Yeah.
And so he's spectacular at math. In fact, he had an independent reading project. We have I'm all over the place, but he's a math team kid. We've got a whiteboard in our living room. We still enjoy working math problems and experiencing that together.
Yeah.
And so he's going to continue on in math team in high school. And in fact, he had an independent reading project for his ELA class this last week, and he had to draw a food truck. It's a really complicated story, but just go with it. So he had to draw a food truck on a poster board, and I'm watching him do it, not just in an artistic way, but he's over there calculating out the ratio of what the sides of the truck need to be. And I was like, oh, son, you're just like me. Like it's, in fact, we have T-shirts that were created by one of my art friends, where mine says tree and his says apple. Yeah. He's so much like me. It's so fun and also terrifying.
Well, as we wrap up, we always kind of end with the same couple of questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, if you had the chance to go to space today, would you go?
Am I allowed to say hell yeah? Yes. Yes, I would absolutely go to space today. NASA, it's not too late to select me.
And then the second question is, if you could give advice to a young person who is thinking about a career in STEM or any of the fields that you are tangentially related to, which is a lot of fields right now, what kind of advice would you give?
Don't quit. Math, physics, STEM in general, I think takes resiliency. And there's gonna be a class or a problem or a quarter or a semester. There's gonna be some moment that gets you good. And you're gonna feel like you're not good enough. And you're gonna feel like people told me I was good at math, maybe I'm not. You're definitely gonna run into it. 100%. I'm telling you right now, you are going to run into a moment or a time or a class or a teacher that feels too hard. You can do it. Go back to the beginning of the book, figure it out. Go get help, go get tutoring. Don't give up. It requires resiliency. Stick with it, and it's very, very worth it.
I've got a spaceship that I